Okay, the next topic is energy and chemical reactions. As you can see in there, we have energy and work. Energy is the capacity to do work, and work means moving something, such as, for example, a molecule or a muscle. Okay, so then there are different kinds of energy. We have potential energy, kinetic energy, but the one that is important for the human body is going to be chemical energy. Why? Because chemical energy is the energy stored in food in the way of bonds, which is what we already covered, ionic bond and covalent bonds. So the nutrients, for example, glucose, is connected, the molecules, right, of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are connected using bonds, and that's going to be chemical energy. Okay, well now, if we scroll down, we have classes of chemical reactions. What type of chemical reactions we have? We have the one decomposition reactions, for example, which are going to be reactions that are going to break down things, and building reactions, which are going to be called synthesis reactions. You can see here one big thing, and you break it down into small things. That's gonna be a decomposition reaction. Okay. Now you can have also the opposite. You can have little pieces, and you can put together these little pieces in order to build big pieces. As you can see here, you have little pieces and you put them together to build big pieces. In this case, this is going to be a synthesis reaction. So when you have something big, you get little things, decomposition reaction. When you have little things and you build something bigger, synthesis reactions. Now, how these chemical reactions happen? You have in here A, B, C, and D. What happens if A, B, and C, D never get in contact? They never touch. So then a chemical reaction will not happen. So that means that a chemical reaction has something called a reaction rate, which is the number of times by which these molecules are going to be in contact with these molecules in order to have a chemical reaction. Because again, if they never touch, if they never collide to each other, then a chemical reaction does not happen. Now, these chemical reactions sometimes be reversible, meaning they can come from here to here, and from here go back into these two different substances again. So you have reversible reactions, and you have also reaction rates, which is something that you need to remember. So we have in here synthesis reactions. We said those are the ones that build. I already mentioned also reversible reactions, right? And we scroll down, we should see right here reaction rates, which we said the frequency by which the molecules need to get in contact in order to produce a chemical reaction. These reaction rates are going to vary based on concentration. The more molecules you have, the more chances you have in order to have a chemical reaction. Temperature, as you know, when something is hot, it's going to move faster, therefore the more options to get a chemical reaction, as well as catalysts. Catalysts are substances that are very important because they will allow us to make this chemical reaction possible. Most of the time, catalysts are proteins. Okay, so then metabolism, oxidation, and reduction. We have in here that all the chemical reactions that happen in your body are going to fall under the category of metabolism. The chemical reactions that build are going to fall under the category of anabolism. All the chemical reactions that destroy are going to fall under the category of catabolism. Oxidation and reduction. Okay, in a chemical reaction, for example, this one, there's going to be a molecule that is going to give or is going to release electrons. So then when the molecule releases electrons, let's say from here to here, then this molecule is going to be called an oxidizing agent. Okay, it's going to oxidize. And when in a chemical reaction, this molecule receives electrons, then this is called a reduction agent, okay, or reducing agent. So then chemical reaction can be an oxidation, right? Or it can be reduction, because this one is going to oxidize by giving electrons, and this one is going to be a reduction because this is going to be receive electrons. Therefore, this one is going to become, as you can see right here, a reducing agent, okay? And this one is going to be an oxidizing agent, as you can see here, because this one gives the electrons and this one receives the electrons. Okay, if we scroll down, we see here some examples of chemical reactions, and that's about it. Okay, the next topic is organic compounds. An organic compound is most of the time considered that contains carbon. Okay, so if it contains carbon, it's considered an organic compound, but that's not all the not all of the organic compounds have carbon, such as, for example, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has carbon, but it doesn't have, it's not considered an organic compound. So examples of organic compound that we're going to have are going to be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. So let's take a look at this. When we have single units of these molecules, then are going to be called monomers. Multiple units are going to be called polymers. Now, how do we do this, or how do we form these polymers? Well, we have monomers. As you can see here, we have one monomer and another monomer. We put them together by removing water. Therefore, this is going to be called dehydration synthesis. Remember, we mentioned that synthesis is building things. So if you have two separated, now they are together because we remove water. Since we remove water, this is called dehydration synthesis. Now, the opposite to that is we have something that is going to be already put together, right? And we know that hydro means water. So then if we add water, this molecule that was together now is separated. Therefore, this type of chemical reaction is going to be hydrolysis. So let's scroll down and let's see what carbohydrates are. Well, we said that hydro means what? Water, right? So then what's a carbohydrate? Then it's a carbon that has water. As you can see that in here, you see carbon and water. What's a carbohydrate? It's a carbon that you hydrated with water. Now, this is the basic unit. Now, if you put together 6 of these, as you can see here, you're going to get glucose, which is C6H12O6. Okay, it's as easy as that. So a carbohydrate is a carbon that you hydrate. And the more of these you put together, you're going to get different units. So carbohydrates, we're going to have, for example, glucose. In this case, the monomer is going to be called, in the case of carbohydrates, monosaccharides. And you can see here, glucose. Okay, other examples of monosaccharides, you're going to have galactose and fructose, as you can see right here. Okay, and if you put together 2 of them with a synthesis reaction, then you're going to get a disaccharide. For example, sucrose, which is the combination of glucose and fructose, as you can see right here. Okay, other ones are going to be lactose as well as maltose. Right? That's a disaccharide. A polysaccharide of glucose, for example, is going to be a glycogen, which is a long chain of glucose, as you can see here. Obviously, you have other long changes, such as for example, starch, cellulose, right? Those are going to be other examples. You have in here carbohydrate functions. For example, glucose is very important in the human body in order to produce ATP from it by the cells of the human body. Okay, so if we keep scrolling down, proteoglycans is just a combination of proteins as well as carbohydrates. Each part is called a moiety. Okay, so then what's a proteoglycan? It's just a macromolecule that has proteins and glucose, okay, or carbohydrates. And in this case, how do you call the protein part? A moiety, as you can see in here. And how do you call the glycan part? A moiety. It's just a term that you may heard in some other classes. Lipids. The lipids, there are 2 main kinds. Basically, we have simple lipids, right? And these are the ones that you're going to see right here. You see? You have these lines right here. These are going to be called fatty acids. And if we scroll down, you're going to see the other one, which is this one. You see? They have these rings in here. So this has a different structure than the ones that I showed you before. This is cholesterol. Okay? So let's go back. In this one, you have chains of fatty acids, like such as palmitic acid, for example, and they are mixed with glycerol. And when you mix them, right, and what chemical reaction you use to mix things, you use a dehydration synthesis. And when you mix them, you're going to form this structure, which is going to be a triglyceride. Why? Tri, because you have 1, 2, 3 fatty acids, and it's combined with glycerol, a triglyceride. This is a simple lipid. If you look at this, every single carbon is combined with hydrogen, right? Here too. But looking here, they are not. They don't have hydrogen here. Therefore, this is called unsaturated fat. If everything would be like this, then it would be a saturated fat. So when it's not full of hydrogens in here, because you have a double bond, then it's unsaturated fat. If you have hydrogens everywhere without the double bonds, then it's going to be a saturated fat. Okay, if we keep scrolling down, You can see here trans fats and cis fats. I'm not going to talk about that. That's not necessarily related to what we need to cover. That's more nutrition. So I'm not going to mention anything about it, even though probably uh, may be important for other classes. But something that we need to cover is going to be phospholipids. Phospholipids is a little bit more complex than a fatty acid, right, like glycerol, but it comes from a glycerol and from fatty acids. As you can hear right here, you have a triglyceride. In triglyceride, we said we have glycerol plus 3 fatty acids. But in this case, you have only 2 fatty acids. Why? Because the third fatty acid, the bond that was here, was broken in order to make sure that we can connect it with this phosphate. So we break one of the fatty acids and we release that in order to use that particular bond to attach the phosphate. Okay, so then what is this? A phosphate lipid, okay, which is a very important component of your cell membrane. Okay, let's keep scrolling down. We have in here cosinoids, which comes from a fatty acid called arachidonic acid, as you can see right here. It's very important because from there you're going to get prostaglandins, which are a very important substance in our body that you're going to learn later on. Steroid is the other type of fat, as I was telling you. As I show you, you have in here an steroid. The most important one is cholesterol. What's the characteristic of cholesterol? That is going to have rings. So don't forget this, because cholesterol is very important in our body, because from cholesterol you're going to get hormones, for example, such as testosterone and estrogens. Okay, and from triglycerides you can get functions such as energy storage, as you can see right here. The next the next topic is going to be proteins. Proteins are chains of amino acids. So if you scroll down, we can see here that we have an amino acid. This part right here on the top, NH2, is the amino. And this part right here, COOH, is a carboxyl group, which is going to give you the acid. Okay, so then you have an amino acid. This is another amino acid. But there's one part that is going to be different. See, this part right here is different. This part right here is different. And this part is what make the different types of amino acid that we use in order to make proteins. So as you can see here, methionine and cysteine, right? These are two different kinds of amino acids because this part right here, the variable part, is different. If you scroll down, you can see here other type of amino acids in which, again, the backbone is the same, right? The amino and the acid, and this part is the only one that is going to be different. Okay? So if we scroll down, we can see that all the amino acids are going to be connected by peptide bonds. But why do they need to get connected? Because when they get connected, the amino acids are going to give you different structures. How many structures the amino acids can have? I mean, the proteins can have. They can have up to 4 structures, as you can see in there: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. Most of the proteins that we have in our body are going, and they have very important functions, are going to be with quaternary structure. For example, hemoglobin in our red blood cells. Other functions of proteins are going to be cell membrane channels, right? Cell identity markers. They are also going to be catalysts, as we mentioned in the case of chemical reactions, and that's what you see right there. Okay, proteins functions. In the case of enzymes, enzymes obviously are proteins. Enzymes have an active site where the substrates are going to go inside in order to get together or in order to be split apart. That's the function of the enzyme, as we have seen in the chemical reactions before. Enzymes need cofactors or coenzymes. Cofactors are inorganic, such as, for example, iron, and coenzymes are organic, such as, for example, vitamins. Cofactors and coenzymes are necessary in order for the enzyme to work. So as we scroll down, you see in there the enzyme with the active site and the substrate going in there. Okay, and also you have in there cofactors and coenzymes that we already mentioned that in this part. And then the next topic is going to be nucleic acid and nucleotides. A nucleotide is composed of 3 things, as you can see here with these 3 colors. This part right here is a base containing nitrogen, as you can see, is also called a nitrous base. It also needs a sugar, and it has phosphate, as you can see here already. Now, a very important nucleotide is ATP, as you can see right here. In the case ATP, the base that contains nitrogen is going to be adenine, the sugar is going to be ribose, and you're going to have 3 phosphates, 1, 2, and 3. That's why it's called ATP. Now, another function of nucleotides is to be the main component of nucleic acids. If we scroll down, we can see right here nucleic acids, and the nucleic acids can be DNA as well as RNA. We can mention this later on in other chapters. Other type of nucleotides are going to be adenosine triphosphate as well as cyclic adenosine monophosphate.